Hi guys, welcome to Dustin the Blind Minnesotan podcast. Today I want to talk about something to make you guys all feel better. Because a lot of people my age feel stuck and I'm 29, right? I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting closer to 30. And a lot of us in Generation Z feel trapped, stuck, hopeless, don't have any hope. And I'm here to tell you how my dirt is and my shit so you guys can feel better about your inadequacies and shit. So, when I graduated from Hennepin Technical College in Brooklyn Park about 6 years ago now, right? I thought I graduated with an IT support degree, right? I worked when I was in college. I worked at Toys R Us part-time when I was in college, right? I worked at Total Wine part-time when I was in college. I worked at CVS part-time when I was in college, right? And, I was working part-time jobs when I was in college, going to college and, hoping, to get this IT support degree. I went to Resource in South Minneapolis, tried to go to school there, did not like it. I finished my classes, my basic certifications, but I did not stay because I did not like it. Went to Anoka Ramsey, went there, tried to get some classes there, took some IT classes there in Coon Rapids over there. I liked the teacher, but he did not, and there was only one teacher that could work my schedule because he was a day teacher and all the other teachers taught at night, and I didn't want to be at school at midnight. So, his teaching method and me did not compute. So then I moved over to Hennepin Technical College, where, the teachers there and their teaching method clicked with me. And, I graduated from Hennepin Technical College. I had this beautiful IT degree, all these certifications. Thinking I'm going to join the IT industry. I interviewed during COVID, I tried. I interviewed during COVID, I tried. I interviewed during, and then fail, right? I got a job at Dairy Queen after college in Maple Grove. Hated the fast food industry, right? I worked at McDonald's, but McDonald's was when I was in high school. But McDonald's was easy because McDonald's, everything's so robotic, recognized. Like it says, you pull out, you pull out. You drop it when the machine tells you to drop it. It was easy fast food. But Dairy Queen, that was not easy fast food. You have to know how to make all the ice cream and all. It's not, Dairy Queen doesn't have a lever. You just walk over, push a button, and chocolate chip ice cream, M&Ms just come out of the machine. No, you actually have to physically make it. And, and you have to remember all the recipes and stuff. And I didn't like working at fast food. Nope. People are too picky when it comes to their food and stuff, and I couldn't stand it. So then I got a job at Nordstrom Rack of Maple Grove. And what I did at Nordstrom Rack of Maple Grove is, I would walk to work and walk back home from work. I would take Ubers home if the days I was tired, right? Because in Maple Grove, I got around by Uber. My number way around of getting around to Maple Grove was Uber. So I would just bite the bullet and just Uber places, right? So what I did at the Nordstrom Rack of Maple Grove is I sold men's clothing and I did cashiering. So, because Nordstrom Rack in Maple Grove is always so busy, you never got bored. You never got bored. Trust me, that Nordstrom Rack in Maple Grove is making money. If they ever close that store, it's because of bad management. Trust me, that Nordstrom Rack in Maple Grove should always be making money. Because that store is always crammed with customers. It's a lot of women. So buying things for their husbands, buying things for themselves, buying things for their kids. You mean? So I was always busy cashiering, stocking men's clothes, running the men's fitting room, helping with men with their shoes. I loved working at Nordstrom Rack. And it was me, an African American dude, and Jason, who was there for 10 years, who worked in the back, right? He was the manager of the loading dock, and that's what he did all day. So he wasn't ever really in charge up front. The African American kid guy we hired, he only did cashiering. So pretty much I had all the free run of the men's clothing department, because none of the Jason didn't want to do it, the cashiering guy up front didn't want to do it. So it was just me, right? So when it was slow up front, or when they had enough cashiers, it was just me stocking the men's department. And I liked it. I really liked it. And there was a woman that was in charge of the store, Maple Grove, called Hannah. And Hannah was a nice lady. I missed talking and spending time with her. And there was another nice lady I worked with called Lane. And I worked with two really nice ladies on the floor. And there was another lady sometimes I would show up called Savannah. And Savannah did the female changing room. The female changing room was always so busy that was her full-time job, was dealing with just the female changing room. So Savannah was awesome. So I worked with three awesome, and Latasha / Tasha she ran the front end cash registers, right? So I worked with all these powerful, strong ladies, right? And my life was going to plan, and women and guys, right? We don't see things eye to eye all the time. So of course we had some arguments at work about how things should be done, how our views on credit cards, because a lot of the women would want people to do credit cards, right? Me as a guy, I'm like, I don't want to push credit cards because credit cards are evil. So I didn't want to push credit cards. So me and the women would fight over things like, should we push credit cards? How much credit cards should I pushing, right? I didn't feel comfortable pushing the credit cards, right? So me and some of the female ladies, we butted heads a little bit because we both saw retail differently, right? I'm from the guy's perspective. They're seeing it from the female perspective. So Hannah came up with a solution, right? Like, hey, I run a store in downtown Minneapolis. We need someone to run the guy section down there because everyone I work there are mostly women, and we have someone that lacks the guy section. So I said, sure, right? So I'll run the guy section and I'll do cashiering, right? Cool. So I moved to downtown. I found an apartment building in LaSalle Plaza Apartments. Now it's called LaSalle Apartments. Ran the Skyway. I was paying $950 a month for a studio apartment, right? And I was walking to the Skyway for work, and then one day they just closed the store on us on downtown in Nicollet Mall without even telling us. Now I'm jobless, and I have an apartment now I have to pay for. Right? I'm like, fuck. I just upended my perfect life in Maple Grove, right? To come to downtown into Minneapolis, an area I barely know, for work. And it blew up in my face. Nordstrom Rack failed me. I never blamed Hannah for it. I never blamed Lane for it because they don't own Nordstrom Rack. They couldn't control that Nordstrom decided to close the store. So I don't blame them for that. If I ever run into Hannah and Lane again, those girls better be prepared for a big hug. because I miss seeing them. You know what I mean? I miss hanging out with them, and they were pretty cool. They were relaxed. They enjoyed. They really had a passion for what they did, and they really loved running that damn store. So you know what I mean? So that's when I got the job at Mall of America, right? I didn't move to downtown and work in Bloomington. If I wanted to work at the Mall of America, I would just move to Bloomington. You know what I mean? So then I was taking the D-line bus, right? From downtown Minneapolis, that goes from Brooklyn Center through downtown Minneapolis, through Richfield to the Mall of America, right? Because it goes through Bloomington. So I would literally take, the D bus all the way down to work, right? Or the train. In the D bus, in the Blue Line train, oh my God, there's so much drinking, drug addicts, people having sex on the bus and on the train. And you know what I mean? I'm like, can you please have sex not on public transportation, please? Do it in the park. Do it in the outhouse. Do it in the bathroom stall. Do it in the middle of the freaking train. So, you know what I mean? So I saw some things that still traumatize me today, and maybe one day I should go get therapy for. But that's a problem for another day. So, so then I'm working at a place that I did not want to work. I didn't mind working in Nickelodeon Universe when I worked for the Mall of America, like selling like popcorn, ride tickets, and that kind of stuff. But working at the customer service desk, like by the transit entrance, was just exhausting. And when I took the job, right, they told me I would be on the phones. So I'm like, cool, I can be on the phones, and I can be in this nice, comfy office, and answering people's questions about the mall, and and all that stuff, right? Helping them book vacations and all that stuff, right? Well, they halfly lied to me when I applied, when I did the job. I did do that kind of stuff, but at the counter, at the transit station, where homeless people are pestering you and bothering you, and all that stuff. So, and I'm going to tell you, the whole time I was looking for a way out. I was looking for a way out of Mall of America. But I do miss working with Denise. Denise was awesome. She was a germ freak. She was obviously a germ freak, but working with her was awesome. Working with Erwin was awesome. Working with Trevor was awesome. Working, with Jesse was awesome. Working with Vicky was amazing. Working with Cheryl's awesome. I worked with a bunch of powerful ladies, right? And they made me fit right into the group. Erwin was a guy, but and it was pretty cool because Erwin was the first I'm gonna say gay Latino that I ever worked with. And I'm like, cool, you're my first gay Latino that I ever met, So it was pretty cool, hanging out with them and, working with them. And in the Mall of America, we kind of felt like the managers, I hated the people who worked at the corporate office. I hated the people who worked at the corporate office at the Mall of America, because they always felt like they were better than us. They always acted like, ha ha ha, I work in the offices at the Mall of America. I'm way better than you guest service peasants. That's how it felt when I worked there. But my actual real coworkers were the bomb. There was two managers I really liked. They were Patrick and Denise. They were like, Denise was a little bit too germ-phoby, but other than that, she was a very good person. And Patrick was lean back, Denise was lean back, minus when it comes to germs. They were passionate about their job, and they liked their job, and they dedicated so much soul to the Mall of America. You mean, but when I found DCM services, right, I only had 3 months left on my lease. So I said, let's do this, right? So then I did debt collection agencies. I didn't like it, but I did it because it was better than Mall of America. Woohoo! Because of the way the management was. Not because of the coworkers, it was because of the way the management treated people there. It's one of those things that I really liked, coming to work, sitting in an office cubicle, and DCM Services is in the block building right next to Great Wolf Lodge. So what I would do is I would call people about their debts, and I liked helping people. Okay, I wasn't the debt collected agency person who give me all your money now. I was one of those debt collection agencies people that wanted the people do payment plans. Because I knew, like me, right, who's disabled, visually impaired, a lot of people like me don't have a lot of money, right? That's why they're using credit cards in the first place, because they don't have the money. But they want to trick everyone thinking they have a glamorous lifestyle. So I get it. I got it. So I'm like, hey, let's start a payment plan. Let's start a payment plan, right? And DCM Services was the first job I ever got fired from. They called me in the office, and I did not plan that, right? I liked it. They called me in the office, and they said, sir, you're not collecting enough big money for us, so we have to let you go. And I'm like, okay, so now I'm jobless, and Mall of America already filled up my position, right? So I couldn't go back, right? But what saved me was, be lucky I never used my 2 months of free rent for my apartment complex, right? So I'm like, yay, I'm not going homeless, suckers! And I had Social Security, right? So between my 2 free months of rent and my Social Security, I was afraid I was going to go homeless there. And I felt like I failed because I'm like, I wanted to do this. I loved the deal, helping people pay off their debts and all that stuff. I liked making the payment plans with people. If I ever do debt collection agency again, I'm working for a real bank. I'm not going third party like DCM Services anymore. Nope, I'm not going that route. If I'm going to be a debt collection agency, I want to work for real Chase. I want to sit in a real Chase building that says Chase on it. And the building's owned by Chase. And everyone is wearing Chase uniforms. And we're all working for Chase, not like a third-party service. Because I would have enjoyed that better if I worked for a real Chase and not like a third-party service that Chase pays. If I'm ever going to do that again, I'm going to work for the real banks, like Wells Fargo, Huntington, Chase, JP Morgan. I want to work for a real bank and not like their third-party contractors. Because with the real bank, they're going to want people to do payment plans because they want money is money. Well, debt agency, they get more money if you do bigger payments. So, I did not plan to get fired. I really liked it, but I did plan to get fired. So then I went to go stay at my mom's in Florida because my mom is one of those people. I'm gonna go to Florida and retire, and then she gets down there and she gets bored, and then she goes back to work. So then I went to go stay with my mom for about 2 months, right? As I was trying to figure out where I want to go, where I want to do, right? And I come back, right? And I pay my last month in my last few fees at my apartment in downtown. And then, when I came back up here, I looked at Columbia Heights, looked at Robbinsdale, looked at Fridley, looked at apartments in Richfield, right? And I like Columbia Heights. So I came here and I lived here and I got a job at Discount 70. And, I was working at Discount 70, living in Columbia Heights, and my mom and my stepdad decided to help me buy a condo here in Columbia Heights. And I agreed to it because I loved the neighborhood. I was working at Discount 70. I could walk to work. I was selling furniture at Discount 70. You know what I mean? And then, but what happened was, after my parents helped me buy this place, Discount 70 laid me off because they were not making enough furniture sales. And then I was jobless again. So, you know how embarrassing it is where your parents first help you buy a house and then you can't make the first house payment because you got laid off? Then I was on the bus one day helping to find jobs. I ran into this guy named Sean. Sean helped me tell, hey, there's a Mike's Discount Foods right up the block. They sell used food. You mean go up there and interview, right? Go up there and ask for a job. I went to that Mike's, right? And they said, hey, we're not hiring, right? And I said, okay, go up to the one in Fridley. So I didn't even know where Mike's Discount Foods in Fridley was. I only lived in Columbia Heights for like 5 months at that point, right? And I only hung on Columbia Heights because that's where I worked and lived and shopped. Because there's a Family Dollar close by my house, right? I just went and shopped there. So, you know what I mean? So then, I ended up going to the Fridley one where I currently work, thank God. And they told me they were in a hiring freeze because they didn't know how they were doing economically. So then they sent me to Bob's Produce Ranch across the street, worked there. I worked there about 9 to 10 months until business stopped doing good, and then they cut my hours. I quit, and I got a job at Mike's Discount Foods across the street. So the last, 4 years, guys, for me, have been a roller coaster, right? And when I originally moved out of my parents' house, 5 to 6 years ago, I did not plan, right? I planned to be in downtown and be successful and work in the Skyways and sell men's clothing and and blah blah blah, after my IT dreams fell apart, right? But nope, now I'm in Columbia Heights and MSA, I wanted the downtown Minneapolis dream, right? It did not happen for me. Now my ship was supposed to be heading towards the downtown Minneapolis island. A windstorm happened, blew me, and my ship crashed in the Columbia Heights island, Fridley Island, right? But the Fridley Island has uranium, gold, coffee, sugarcane, and it has all this stuff, right, on this magical island that you never thought about. When then you realize this island that your ship crashed at in a storm is way better than the island that you were trying to get to. So, if the Nordstrom Rack in downtown Minneapolis never closed, and if corporate Nordstrom never closed it, I would have never moved to Columbia Heights. I would never worked at Discount 70. I would never worked at Bob's Produce Ranch and met my best friend Will. I met my best friend Will working at Bob's Produce Ranch. I would never met my best friend Will. I wouldn't know my friend Debbie that used to work at Mike's Discount Foods before she retired. I wouldn't know my friend Kyle, that works at Mike's with me. And I wouldn't know my friend Sean, who used to work at Mike's with me. I would have known all these wonderful people that I know now. If Nordstrom Rack never closed the store. And I'm going to say, me moving to Columbia Heights was the best thing for me, right? I have the public transportation I need because I'm visually impaired, right? I have Metro Mobility 24 hours a day. I have the 10 bus. I have the 801 bus. I have the 11 bus, right? And they take me to everything I ever need. You mean I have, I work 10 minutes away, a 10-minute Uber ride away if I take Uber, or 35 minutes if I take the bus. And 35 minutes is awfully quick if you take the bus. You mean? Boom, you mean? And that's the long bus rides. Most times, if it's quick, it takes me 10 minutes. If no one's at every stop. But if everyone's at every stop, it takes about 35. And I'm used to taking a 2-hour bus ride when I worked at the Mall of America. So 35 minutes is not bad. So then you know what I mean? And I like what I do. I like working at Mike's Discount Foods in Fridley because the grocery store serves low-income people like me. So when I'm stocking the produce section, I'm helping low-income people like me, because then low-income people like me can actually buy the food, because a low-income person like me is stocking the food. So, I actually love where I live, and I'm putting this out there. So all the young people out there, right, that felt like their life is falling apart and stuff, hey, at least you didn't need your parents' money to help you get a place so you're not homeless. You mean? At least you're not living with your parents. Because technically, when my mom comes and my stepdad come to Minnesota, they stay with me. So technically, I still live with my parents. You mean? Or my parents technically part-time live with me. I don't know how to put that. But I'm very blessed. I'm not living in a hotel. I'm not living in a homeless shelter. You mean? I'm not couch hopping. I'm very blessed, right? I'm so thankful to God, that, in Jesus and all the other heavenly figures up there, that, that I have a house. I have a nice house. Most people like me don't have a condo with their parents. You mean? Most people like me right now don't even have a job. So I'm blessed. Thank God. But I'm just, coming out here to kind of tell you guys that even don't be embarrassed that you're 29 years old, still working in retail and living with your parents. You mean? Just be happy that you're not homeless, you're not starving to death, and you have a job. And I'm going to say in other countries like Mexico, Ecuador, Brazil, and a lot of places in Africa like Kenya, where my stepdad's from, it's normal for families to live together. Families will come together and the grandkids, parents, and grandparents will all team up together to buy a house. And they all live in this 4-bedroom house together. Even here in Columbia Heights, where I live, a lot of the Ecuadorians and other South American groups and Mexicans, they all team up. They start off in an apartment. They all team up together, buy a trailer house. Then they stay at the trailer house until they save money, and then they all buy a regular 4-bedroom, 1-bath house. And then they turn the sub-basement into another bathroom. So then they'll have 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. Because one is in the sub-basement and one is the original one. And then, they all, it's tight, but, they all live together and they have a good time. I have an Ecuadorian family who lives right outside my condo in a single-family house. Their kids, the grandpa and grandma get to watch their grandkids every day because they're the free babysitters. And, you can see the kids playing in the backyard with their dog. And, and they're happy. And, they're, living with your family, if you're on good terms, makes you happier than living by yourself, paying overpriced rents, and being depressed. So, if you can't afford to live by yourself, come down here you and your family, come down here to Columbia Heights, Fridley, Hilltop, and some parts of Coon Rapids, and all work together to buy a 4-bedroom house. You and your girlfriend or boyfriend can live in one room. Your parents can live in another room. Your grandparents can live in another room. And then the 4th room could be a room where your dogs sleep and all that stuff. And then, you can, or more kids. And you all can work together and have this nice lifestyle. You mean? And then also your bills are cheaper because you're breaking it so many different ways. And you can actually afford to live in a nice place with your families for off minimum wage jobs. So guys, It sucks if you and your family are trying to all shove 8 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, but if you guys can all work and team up, you guys can buy a 4-bedroom, 2-bath house in an older neighborhood like mine in Columbia Heights. And yeah, it's not going to be nice like a new house up in Blaine, but it's better and more affordable and more comfortable than living in a luxury apartment in downtown Minneapolis with strangers who you can't trust, or living in your own apartment and living paycheck to paycheck and barely and struggling just to pay your bills and having being chance of being homeless. So move in with your family. Do not be embarrassed. Save tons of money. Be like our Mexican, South American friends who live in my Columbia Heights area, and split the bills with your family members and live in a nice place. And you know your family members are not going to kill you in your sleep and put you in the dumpster. So I hope you guys have a good day. Bye-bye.